Welcome to Life with Jason, episode 118, Walking on Water. Kind of an appropriate title for today as it's raining. So I'm going for my walk today. And I want to talk about a story in the Bible about Peter and his moment that sometimes I believe gets glossed over. So join me. As I was going for my walk yesterday, this message was kind of developing in my mind as I was going for my just nature walk. And I didn't record it yesterday because it was just kind of fleshing out, but and I don't even know how it's going to turn out today, because when I record these videos, I don't have anything really scripted. I just have the idea that comes to mind, and then I just speak from the heart with it all. So, but yeah, today I want to talk about this story that happened in the Bible about Peter and him walking on water. But there's a lot that I guess has to get unpacked in regards to what this story is all about. You see, for those of you who don't know the Bible, I'll just kind of give a summary of what was going on. Jesus had just finished working with a large crowd of people. And he had told his disciples, he said, I need some alone time. I need some me time. I need some time to recuperate. So I want you guys to go ahead of me, get on the boat, and head across the Sea of Galilee to our next destination, and I'll meet you there. There's a lot of interesting things to think about, even just that. You see, he didn't tell the disciples how he was going to get there, or when he was going to get there, or what. He just said, just go over there. I'll meet you over there. I just need some alone time. I need some me time. And so the disciples got onto the boat, and they started heading across the Sea of Galilee. And as they were going across, we get told in the story that a storm started happening. And the sea got pretty wild. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the Sea of Galilee and how the storms get over there. And I don't know a lot about the boat that they were in. But from what I believe to what I come to understand is that it wasn't a very big boat. It was a small fishing boat kind of thing. And so here are these 11 men on this small boat, and a wild storm is ensuing. The sea is raging, and they're doing everything they can. They're experienced fishermen, so they got experience of being on the boats. And it's getting pretty wild out there. And there's a bit of a metaphor in that, because our lives at times can be a massive storm. A lot of chaos happening where we're fearful. We don't know what is going to happen. We feel like the boat is going to capsize at any minute, and that we're going to lose control, and that we'll be lost at sea. Right? I've been there many times in life. stresses in my marriage, relationship, things like that going on, wondering where how to make ends meet when financially things are tight. There's a lot of things in our lives that can cause stress and can cause anxiety that makes us feel like we're going to capsize at any minute, right? We're in this boat and it's taking on water. We're sinking, we're drowning. It can be emotionally something going on, right? Like a tragic event, and we lose a part of ourselves. And in that process, we're just mentally gone in depression. But the story doesn't end there. See, the disciples, they didn't know that this storm was coming. Just like in our lives, a lot of times we didn't know that event was going to happen that would change our lives forever. And we're in the midst of that storm. We don't know what's on the other side. We only know that in the moment we're feeling this stress, this anxiety, the pain, the suffering. We're seeing the chaos. We're not able to focus clearly on what could be on the other side of this storm. We're just immersed in it at the moment. And even the disciples getting on the boat in the first place and just saying, okay, yeah, we'll meet you on the other side, no worries. Right? That, in a sense, was also kind of like, they're just doing what they do, right? They traveled around and they figured, well, yeah, Jesus is resourceful. He's got lots of connections. There's thousands of people. He might just catch another boat with somebody else and come across with them when he's ready. But they didn't know what was about to transpire. They didn't know any of it. I'm assuming even though they were experienced fishermen and they got on that boat, they were not fully expecting the storm to be as bad as it was. They may have seen hints that the weather was changing, that there was, the potential for something to happen, but to what extreme? They didn't know. They didn't know that what they were about to witness was something even more profound. And it's so much like how our lives can be at times. We're walking through life, we're walking on this journey, we're going through all these things, and we don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, because there's so many things that are beyond our control. We like to think that we have things in control. These were experienced fishermen, most of them, right? They like to think that, well, we know how to sail a boat. We know how to manage and control a boat. But then there's times where things that happen test your skill, test your resourcefulness, test every fiber of your being, test your resolve. To what end? We don't know sometimes, or at least not while we're in it. It's these unknowns, these unpredictables that make life interesting. These challenges that we face that gives us more character. That builds our resolve. It's these unknowns in life that, as painful as they can be to walk through at times, actually present us with a whole lot of beauty. And I know there's some people that will want to say that there's exceptions to that, Jason. How can I find beauty in such evil? I'm not saying that you look at evil as as beautiful. I'm not. Evil is evil. And there's no glorifying evil. It's not about glorifying evil. It's about what transpires on the other side of the event that happens. I've heard many stories of survivors of terrible, terrible, terrible atrocities, true, pure, sick, evil. And these people have come on the other side of these terrible, terrible things with the desire to help others. They come out from the other side a more strengthened, resolved human being with a heart of compassion that goes beyond what most of us can even fully understand. So it's not about glorifying evil. It's about seeing what's potential on the other side. See, that beauty of what happened on the other side of that tragedy is these people become a beautiful version of themselves. With a desire to love others, with a compassion and a heart that is rarely seen. Well, I shouldn't say rarely seen, because it is seen a lot more than you'd like to think. We tend to want to focus on evil instead of focusing on the beauty. So it was in this storm, in this chaos, that the disciples were at their wits' end. All their experience, all their abilities, all their skill were being tested to the max, and they thought they were losing. Seeing a lot of people focus on Jesus at this moment, because that is, and I'm not wanting to discount Jesus, but because Jesus is, in my belief, a very important part of this story. And it is a true miracle. And to know that he was walking on the water. But the interesting thing about this is, while the disciples were in this chaos, being tossed to and fro, doing everything he can to manage and control this ship, Jesus is walking in the storm on the water, just casually walking. He was going to pass right by them, just walk on, as if nothing's going on in life. He's walking on the water while the storm is raging. And he was going to pass them by. And then the disciples look out from the boat, from the chaos, and they catch a glimpse of this being walking on water. And they're like, what? Who is that? Is that the Lord? Jesus, is that you? And Jesus is like, hey guys. And this is where the story gets interesting. Because, again, I don't want to discount the miracle of Jesus and his power and his glory and the authority of all things. But there is a character in this story that I believe gets marginalized for what he was about to do. See, Peter sees Jesus walking on the water, and he calls out and he says, Lord. So basically they're like, save us. And Jesus calls out to Peter, he says, Peter, come to me. Peter's like, what? Are you crazy? Get out of the boat in this storm? In this chaos? This boat is my security. This boat is what's keeping me alive. I gotta hold on to it with dear life. It's the only hope I have. And Jesus said, no, step out of the boat. Come to me. Peter's like, are you sure, God? Are you sure, Jesus? Are you sure? Imagine this. The Bible doesn't go into exact details of it all, but I can sure believe that Peter was probably questioning it. But here's where the step of faith comes in. You see, Peter's already seen the things that Jesus can do, the miracles that he can do. So Peter's like, all right, Jesus, if you say you want me to come to you, I'll come to you. And he gets out of the boat. And guess what happens? Peter starts walking on the water. Peter starts walking on the water towards Jesus because he stepped out in faith. He gathered enough resolve and courage to say, you know what, despite this chaos that's going on right around me, despite the fact that I feel like this is my only security that I have is this boat that is keeping afloat, that's what's going to keep me alive. I'm going to step out in faith and walk towards Jesus. And he did. And here's where people start to, overshadow what Peter really just did. Because then they focus on the fact that he lost sight of what he was called to. And yes, that's very true. We in life, horses. Didn't even see them there. My neighbor's horses. We lose sight of what Jesus is calling us to. Some may say the universe, God. I've been there myself. And so my question to you is in this storm of life that you're in, or it may not even be in a storm right now, but is there something that you're holding on to that is a security blanket? Is there a boat that you're sitting in that you're afraid to get out of? Because this boat is your security and your comfort. It's what's keeping you afloat. Are you willing to take a chance and step out in faith and walk on water? Maybe not literally in the sense of walking on water, but walking on water in the metaphorical sense of a step of faith. We all have challenges that we walk through in life. And we all have something greater within us that we're being called forward into. I truly believe that. Those of you who've been watching me for a while know my story about how a year ago I took that step of faith. I left the boat. Walking on water in a storm isn't easy. There's a lot of things to distract you. The Sea of Galilee and its big waves, tumultuous waters. It's very easy to to misstep, lose your focus because you see something coming at you, instead of keeping focus on what you're being called to. See, you never know what amazing gift what amazing things you might be called into by holding on to the security of being in the boat. You never know what you might be missing out on because you don't have the faith to step out of that boat and walk on water. I think even Peter himself was like astonished when it was first happening, because he's like, is this for real? Am I doing what Jesus is doing? Am I walking on water? See, there's another promise that Jesus gave us in the Bible, and this may have been a little bit later on in the story. I'm not 100% sure on the chronological time order of this. But he said to his disciples that there will come a point in time when we're filled with what they called the Holy Spirit, that we will do miracles and do things greater than what Jesus did. He promised that to us. And I think Peter forgot that. He walked on water. Not only did he lose focus, at a point he started to sink. And guess what happened when that happened? Jesus picked him up. And together they walked back to the boat together. You see, that's not the end of the story, right? Peter walking on water is now walking on water alongside Jesus, because yes, he lost sight for a moment. He lost sight for a moment of what he was being called to. And in that moment that he lost sight of what was going on, because of everything else that was going around him, he got caught up in the storm again and started to sink. But right at that moment when he was starting to sink and he was thinking he was going to drown again, Jesus was there to pick him up. And together, like I said, they walked back to the boat together and got back into the boat again together. And then Jesus calmed the storm. It's a powerful, powerful story when you really put it into context like that. It's a powerful story that tells so much more when you really dig into it. It's a powerful story that we all can look at and see how does that play in my life? How can I, in the midst of a storm, step out in faith and trust that something better is going to happen on the other side of that storm? It takes courage. It takes resolve. It doesn't take perfection. Peter showed that. Peter wasn't perfect. He questioned. He got caught up in the storm even after the miracle of walking on water. So you don't have to be perfect to walk on water, or to walk on the water that you're being called to walk on. You just have to have faith and trust that you can do it, that you're being called forward to walk on that water that you're called to be walking on. And the best part about it is you're not alone. You're not alone in this. It's not about you doing it on your own. You see, right when Peter was losing sight of what he was being called into, and he was starting to drown again, Jesus was there to pick him up and walk alongside him back to the boat, back to the safety. But Peter first had to take that first step of faith and trust. So, walking on water isn't a solo exercise. Because there's somebody there who's willing to walk alongside you in that moment. They're just calling you forward to take that first step of faith, that first step of trust. I know that I sometimes lose sight of that because I tend to be a very independent person. And I'm learning more and more every day of how I can be interdependent. See, God doesn't want us to be codependent. He doesn't want us to be so codependent on Him that we're basically useless without Him. He does things to help build strength, help build muscle and resolve, to set you up and prepare you for what He's calling you forward to. And then He's not going to abandon you after it's all said and done. He's going to keep walking with you. He's going to keep working with you. He's going to keep training you, taking you to that next spot. And so He wants us to be interdependent with Him. God wants us to be working alongside Him in a beautiful, harmonious relationship. I realize that it's not always going to be easy. I've seen that in my own life. As I'm walking forward with Lifting the Soul Ministries, there's days where I feel like I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. I start to sink. I cower. I lie down on the couch and I get on my phone and I play games all day. So the struggle is real. The storms are real. But there's something miraculous on the other side of that storm. There's something beautiful awaiting for you there. So what is it going to take for you to take that step of faith? What is it going to take for you to walk on water like Peter did? In his imperfection, in his questioning. To set aside the fear. To step out of that safety boat, that place of comfort. Until you are willing to let go, until you're willing to get out of the comfortable and get into the uncomfortable, you're probably going to still be stuck. You're probably still going to be living in that chaos. And I'm not saying that you have to always be in chaos for God to work. That's not true. Because there's plenty of examples of miracles that transpired that were happening in just regular everyday circumstances. There wasn't really any chaos happening at all. So how can you change the perspective of the storms in your life? How can you look at things a little bit differently? There's a lot to unpack in what I just shared today. And I'm so thankful and blessed that you guys are here with me on this journey as I walk through these this life, this life journey, as I continue to learn, as I continue to take from my experiences and share with you guys what I'm going through, share with you things that I've come to a realization about. See, in many ways, I'm just like Peter. In many ways, you're just like Peter. Jesus is calling us out. Are you willing to take that step of faith? Are you willing to trust? I know it's a lot to ask, but you never know what's waiting on the other side. Until next time, much love.